Hi guys, how are you? So we are week 17. Week 17 is a little bit different. So I again have to skip this dose. I have been instructed that for this dose and next dose I have to skip because we are trying to give my body a chance to completely rid itself of the bacterial infection that is inside of my digestive tract. My doctor doesn't believe that it's progressing the way that it should, as quickly as it should, because Mounjaro slows the gastric emptying. My doctor believes that the bacterial infection that I am dealing with, the two bacterial infections that I'm dealing with, are just being given way too much opportunity to remain. So they're not getting flushed out because it's just staying inside of me. My gastrointestinal tract isn't flushing the way that it should. Not only does the food stay longer there, so do infections. So I have to skip this dose. However, I forgot to put in a weight for last week. That was 324 even, so I went down 0.4 pounds last week. And then today, 322.3. That's 1.7 pounds down. So 1.7 down. I am not physically more hungry right now. I am emotionally hungry. I have not caught myself mindlessly eating the way that I did last week. However, I have noticed that my cravings for foods that I wasn't craving at all are creeping back. I don't know if it's mental cravings, emotional cravings, or physical cravings, but they're back. And I haven't had those for months, ever since I started Mounjaro back in June 19th. So that is a side effect. I went to the OBGYN today. I had to get an ultrasound to check to see if my IUD was still in place, or to see if it's migrated at all, or just to make sure that it's in the position that it needs to be in. And it is. It is. But because I am still bleeding, and because I am now clotting again regularly, as opposed to before where it was just sort of here and there, and we weren't sure if it was just the OB believed that it was the remnants of the fibroid that they cut out, like its roots, shriveling up and dying and coming out as clots. But because I'm still clotting and the clots are getting bigger, the only other option is going to be a hysterectomy. I will admit that I have already come to terms. Well, I thought I had already come to terms with the fact that I was going to have to do that. But after hearing everything today, where we talked about not just is this a feasible option to me, I did tell her that it was something that I had already sort of come to the conclusion that I was going to need. And the more that I talked to my family about it, the more that I realized, my mom is one of 12 siblings. And of those 12, 9 of them are sisters. But out of all of those, there are many children. Many. My mom is the baby. And she is like 58. She's the baby. And I'm the baby of the girls in my generation. That's not true. There is 2 more girls after me now. But I'm so much older than them. I'm like 7 or 8 years older than the next one. That I just kind of forgot that I'm no longer the baby. But out of all of us girls, now each of my aunts and uncles, only one of them does not have children. But he's a special case. It's, he's been in a mental hospital my entire life, and I'm 43 now. And I believe he's been in and out of mental hospital since he was about 16. And he's like 80. I think he's like 80. He's one of the oldest siblings. Like 75 maybe. I don't know. He's old though. Older. He's my uncle who, again, I have 12 aunts and uncles on my mother's side. My mother's the baby at almost 60. And my grandparents had kids for like 30 years. So I think my oldest aunt, I want to say my oldest aunt is like 81. So my uncle's like, I think he's like 75, 76, 77. I'm not sure, but he's somewhere in his upper 70s at least. He doesn't have children. But he's also been institutionalized for 50 plus years. And, there were very rare occasions where he was released, but very quickly went back in. And I'm sorry, you guys, like, I'm just so emotional and I'm trying to like rein in my emotions, but they're coming and going, and I have a feeling that the crying is going to come and go, because the more that I talk to my family, the more that I realize more and more and more of the females in my family have had hysterectomies than not, and all of us for the same reasons. I know of at least 3 of us, myself included, who do not or who have not received a hysterectomy. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 5 of us still have our uteruses. And there's a lot of us. A lot of us. Each of my aunts and uncles who have children have at least 3 kids. And of those 3 kids, at least 1 daughter. But I have an uncle who has 12 kids of his own, and then 2 of his kids have 12 kids of their own, and there's a lot of girls in my family, a lot of them, and this is just like my grandmother and grandfather's children. This isn't like their sibling. Well, my grandfather doesn't have siblings; he was the only child. But this is not, my grandmother's 2 sisters. This is not including her kids. This is just my grandmother and grandfather's children. And, if we were just talking about like my mother and then me and then my brothers, because there's no other children, or there's no other females in that limb of the tree. My mother's already had a hysterectomy for the same reason. And I am next. I had come to the conclusion a long time ago that I was never going to be able to have kids. But I cannot help but be heartbroken that it's reality now. There was always a chance. There was always a possibility. Because I'm not in menopause yet. So there was always an option. So I did ask my doctor, when are we looking at... I'm so sorry. But I did ask my doctor, realistically, when are we looking to get this done? And she did tell me that she would like to get it done as soon as possible. I also agree that if it has to be done, I'd rather get it done as soon as possible, because let's face it, I've already met I have already met all of my deductibles. My out of pocket would be much less than if we waited till the new year. Again, I have no idea whether or not that's an option. She did talk about how she would prefer to try to get it done laparoscopically. But at my size, we are unsure how realistic that goal will be. So she did mention that not only is it because of my body size, but my uterus's size. Most uteruses are between like 6 and 7 inches, I think she said. I don't remember what she said. Let me see. So apparently a normal size uterus is between 3 to 4 inches. Mine is 11. So she did say it would be the biggest uterus she's ever removed. And she's unsure if it will physically fit through my vaginal canal to pull out. I would be getting a full hysterectomy. So it will not just be the uterus, it'll also be the cervix. Now, I have never in my life considered it. To me, it's like your leg and your foot, like when I say my leg, my foot, I will never mention the ankle unless the ankle is what's specifically hurting. I never thought about it that, your uterus and then your cervix are different. They're not this, they're two separate things, but in my brain, it's just one. The same way that I would consider my ankle to be part of my leg. I never considered it to be a separate entity, but it is. And some women do have their cervixes remain. Mine will not. I did ask, does that mean I will need to have pap smears? In the future? I don't know what they would be looking at if they pull out the cervix and the uterus. She said no, I would no longer need pap smears anymore. We would leave in the fallopian tubes at this time because hopefully I'm getting another 10 years of hormones from them. And so then it won't instantly just push me into menopause. But without a uterus and a cervix, like just a complete hysterectomy, I will no longer have the opportunity to bleed. Now, because of the sheer size of me and my cervix, she has been contemplating like how to get this done. And she did say that the, like the specialists of the OBGYNs who have dealt with both of those things would be oncology specialists. So gynecological oncologists. And she was like, please don't misunderstand. It does not mean you have cancer. And I was like, I get it, She's like, but they are the specialists. So they are who I am reaching out to inquire what they think. Will this be able to be done laparoscopically? However you say that word. Because of the sheer size of the uterus, she believes, they're going to try to do it in one action. She said the reason they don't like to cut it into and pull it out separately is because if for any reason there are any cervical cancer cells or uterine cancer cells, that there's a chance if they cut it in half to remove them both, that they will spread into your body. But because we've already tested mine, we've already tested my tissue, and it has come back negative for any cancer signs, cancer cells. She doesn't believe that that is something that would affect me. That is very rare. She said, but, you know, genetically. And I told her, well, genetically, as far as I'm aware, and I have been asking, nobody in my family has had cervical or uterine cancer, with the exception of one cousin who is not blood related to me. She had cervical cancer, which we know most cervical cancers are HPV cancers and not genetic. And either way, we're not genetically related. So, yeah. So I've been having, I literally just got home from the doctor. My appointment was at 11. It's 2 o'clock. I got my ultrasound done. And then I seen the doctor. And by the time I was done with everything, it was probably about 12:30. And then I just came home. And now my brain is mush. My brain is mush. And yeah, we talked about how if it cannot be done laparoscopically, then they would have to physically cut me open and remove it. And in doing that, it is higher risk of infections and longer timeline of healing and those kinds of things. And it complicates things more. And she said, although, you know, the normal recovery time is 6 weeks, she said it's not 6 weeks from the day that you get surgery. It is 6 weeks from the day that you are now able to lift up to 20 pounds. Because before that, you know, you're just, the timeline hasn't started yet. And I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? So we're looking more along the lines of about 8 weeks. And that is if it's able to be done laparoscopically. And if it's not, then we're looking at even longer. And when we're looking at all that, that means I'm not working. That means I'm not getting paid. It means financial stresses are not fun. But that's neither here nor there. I did mentally prepare for this, and I did. I thought I had came to grips with having to have my uterus removed, but I obviously haven't fully done that. And this is very scary, more so than it is anything else. But it's also emotionally draining. All I've ever wanted since being a little girl. And when I say a little girl, I mean I can remember as far back as even my dad's still living with us. And remember, he went to prison when I was 7. So even younger than that, I could always remember dreaming about when I get married and when I have kids and when I'm a mom and a grandma. And I'm never gonna have that. I'm never gonna experience those things. And that is really hard to cope with right now. Even though I really, really, really thought I had already come to grips with it. I really thought that. But I really haven't. So I don't know what that's gonna mean, like, overall. But she does want me to have a consultation with a gynecological oncologist. She's reaching out to her to see if that's feasible to get done so that we can get this done by the end of the year. And I know I did tell her I've already lost 160 pounds, but I realize that that's not enough to make this even safer. But realistically, how much more can I lose by the end of the year to still have this done this year? I don't know. And the last time this happened, they had a last minute cancellation and they were able to fit me in 2 weeks later. So I don't know how this is going to work. I did ask, do you think my insurance is going to approve this? And she said, I will be honest with you, I don't even think your insurance is on the top of my list of concerns. I really truly believe that it is a no-brainer and they're going to pay for it because you've already tried over your lifetime. You've already tried oral contraceptives. You've already tried Depo. You've already tried an IUD. We've already done this surgery that is basically the last step. Before, she said, you've done everything you physically can do. No medication is going to make this stop. The fibroids that you have are not just internal, because we could scrape them all out and they'll probably grow right back. And we could scrape it out again and just like a merry-go-round, go round and round. Your problem is you don't have just internal, like inside of your uterus fibroids. You have fibroids that are also within your muscles of your uterus. And because of that, there's no way we can get those out. You cannot get those out without removing the uterus itself. Unless they on their own just die and fall out, we cannot physically remove them. We would have to remove your entire uterus. So it's a structural problem. And you've done all that you can. It is like, you did not cause this. You did nothing to cause this. You did nothing to, make it worse. So there is no reason why your insurance shouldn't cover it, but we'll take care of that here. Yeah, we just need to go from there. So, £1.7 pounds down, and I am an emotional wreck, but it has nothing to do with this part of the journey. It has to do with other parts of my journey. And we're going to go from there. I mean, next week I also will be skipping my dose. And then as soon as they call me and tell me that I am on the calendar to get a hysterectomy, I'll have to stop again. But none of these things are going to stop me from continuing to try to make my life better by continuing on my health journeys. Because overall, that's what all of this is for. Even this surgery, it's to make my health better. And it is to make what's the word? It is to make it's just to make I am suffering a lot with all of this bleeding. I know people don't really understand it unless they've been through it themselves. I watched my mother go through it, and I heard the doctors tell me, say goodbye because we don't think we don't think she's going to make it through this. And that wasn't the first time in my life that I heard that. That was the second time. You know? But I didn't understand until I went through it what it meant for her. I knew because I saw it. I knew. I watched her. I watched her become a shell of who she was. And through no fault of her own, I watched all of that, but I didn't understand it. I was also very young. You know, I was like 21, 22. I was young when this started with my mother. And, you know, my brother was an infant. He doesn't even remember. And this just isn't something that anybody can understand unless they've gone through it. And I don't wish this on my worst enemy, which I don't have enemies because why would I have enemies? But you get what I'm saying. I know it's a figure of speech for a reason, but I truly wouldn't wish this on anyone. I really, truly wouldn't. And I really, truly wish that there were far less stories of these things happening to people. And yeah, we're going to go from there. So I want to give you guys your digital hugs. And I want to hear all about how your week has been. I want to hear all the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to hear about all your successes. I want to live vicariously through your successes this week. So, in the emojis, let's put the party guy. Because after all of this is said and done, I will no longer suffer with periods anymore. I will no longer get period cramps. I will no longer have to buy period products. And I'm just praying that my bladder can handle it. I already have a weak bladder. I can't even imagine. So I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. And know that I'm praying for you.